Hello and welcome to Moonknighting, I can never say it, Moonknighting, the Moon Knight podcast from the Comic Crush. Today, because it's our final episode, we wanted to do something special. And one of the pleasures of Marvel shows is that you're not just watching the sort of some creation of the writers and directors on the show, you are also watching the things that some of your favorite comic creators have brought into the world of comics be brought to life on screen. One of the most influential things in Moon Knight has been some of the looks, especially the look that the Stephen Grant character has adorned. And that look was first brought to life by the writer and artist who is about to join us now. So please welcome Declan Shalvey. Declan, hello.
How's it going?
Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for calling me special. I like that
bit. Hey, everyone's special here. And
speaking of special,
speaking of special, no show would be complete without my co-host, Liz.
Hello,
Liz. Great to see you again.
Yes, lovely to see you as well. Lovely to see Declan.
Lovely to see you.
No.
So how long, actually, just for the audience at home, it's been, I think the last time we saw each other was the Portsmouth Comic-Con back in like 2017, 2016, something like that.
Yes. I think, was that the first one?
The first one. Was that 2018? I can't remember because I'm old.
Yeah, I saw Liz at the next one, but she didn't come up to my table. So
oh no, I'm so sad.
Okay, I remember. Don't forget. We were meeting guys in London briefly for a drink. A very nice sunny day, but I can't remember when that was. Again, everything it's hard. It's the most cliche thing right now. Time means nothing anymore, but
no.
Yeah, doesn't.
I remember I had a wonderful evening out with you and John Hendrick in Dublin back in 2015 on our way to San Diego Comic-Con right before Big Bang changed premises.
Oh yeah. Jeez.
Yeah, I know. Time flies.
And of course, we did see Deck at Orbital for the Injection exhibition, which I'm going to say was back in
2016, maybe.
Yeah. And that was great. I remember you taking the audience around and doing like a live kind of commentary on the images. And I remember that just being a really great experience. And
I know that was fun. Any opportunity to let me blab, I seem to relish. So.
Well, this is why you're here tonight.
Here I am again. Huh?
Before we get into the Moon Knight stuff, though, we've got to talk about the exciting stuff you got coming up. I mean, Old Dog, which is due quite soon, I think. Is it
August?
Yeah, quite well. Hopefully not too soon because I'm drawing it right now. In August, late August. It's a kind of how do I sell this? I'm describing it as Winter Soldier meets Mission Impossible.
Right.
Kind of like an old spy basically gets a new lease on life with some kind of I don't say superpowers, but like let's say Captain America-ness, where it's like a heightened spy kind of story where like he can jump faster and punch. So I liked the visual like of a really, really, really old man punching people through walls. I thought that would be entertaining to draw. But I literally just inking a page right now.
Oh, fantastic.
So
wow.
I would say it's kind of some of it is kind of like going back to the kind of the stuff I was doing on Moon Knight, where it's an opportunity to kind of do more like fast-paced action and kind of action storytelling. It's weird. I did that book in 2014, and years later, I haven't really kind of done much more of that type of stuff. So I kind of wanted to just have a little playground to like do little missions. Each issue is a self-contained mission, so it's another place in the world or whatever. And some, I just get to kind of go a little bit nuts each issue. Sorry, I don't think I've sold this book well at all.
No, the page looks amazing. And I loved that about your Moon Knight run. The just that each episode was a little done in one story. And they were always so engaging, and it brought you on. It led you into the next issue. But I love
I like that too, especially in an
alone.
age where everything is kind of like was going to trade, being written for the trade and whatnot. There was something kind of from a drawing point of view, it was great because every new script I got from Warren was just something completely different. So it forced me to kind of up my game. Whereas if you're telling one continuous story, it's part 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's kind of like doing a graphic novel, basically. And you're not really upping your game as substantially. You're doing it gradually. And I kind of want to show off again. Yeah, I guess I just kind of want to push myself a little. And also, if I'm drawing it too, I want to I know how you can easily get bored with stuff. So and I love the genre. I like that's one corner of, I think I got to do a Nick Fury serial at Marvel that I was writing and drawing during the Choosing Sides, Civil War II Choosing Sides anthology. And I think that's what kind of gave me the taste for like the kind of like concise, distilled, done in one action stories that tell a larger story, but you can just read one and like be entertained by that.
Yeah, and this is like a spy thriller. Like basically, it's like a former CIA agent who is kind of going to do one last job, and it goes wrong, and basically he ends up having to work with some shady people that he wouldn't have expected to have to work with. Is that
you can already hear the grisly kind of like, he was a CIA agent on his last mission. You can hear the old the 90s style voiceover, but yeah, there's more to it. There's a kind of I would say a very how to say, there's certainly a personal kind of family story at the heart of it that I don't really want to get into, because it's kind of the reveal at the end of the first issue. So I don't want to. But there is a secondary character in the story that isn't Old Dog himself, and that kind of relationship is kind of the core of the story. So you have this kind of younger agent and this agent who's well past his time, who's kind of now living in an espionage world that is like technologically, and like part of it's kind of inspired as well by like how, I don't know, I'm the generation, I remember when we were getting mobile phones, and now you kind of look at kids and they're just like using like screens as if they're in Minority Report now, and that's not that long a time. And I could imagine like somebody older than me like going to sleep for 10 years and coming out, like the world would literally seem like a different place now. And I kind of want to play with some of those kind of themes and stuff,
Yeah, some of my favorite.
I've got like cerebral things going on too. It's not just about people punching each other.
But people punching each other is also very
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I would hope. Yeah, I mean, actually, it reminds me a little bit of some of like my favorite Punisher stories in a way, where he's just this like kind of broken down old man, and but he just keeps fighting and keeps fighting and keeps fighting.
Yeah, no, there's this is something kind of totally different. But something I was thinking about recently is just how I feel a lot of characters from maybe 10, 15 years ago, a lot of them were about like perseverance and, dealing with like fighting in a difficult world. And a lot of kind of stories now are about how you're amazing and everyone should just appreciate how brilliant you are. And I don't really get much from those stories. I think we could do it a bit more like perseverance actually is a good thing, I actually like that about the new Batman film, without spoiling anything. But yeah, no, but I mean, like, it's just a vehicle to just tell some kind of, I don't want to say throwback, because I'm trying to make this feel like a very kind of a modern book, from a design point of view and the kind of the storytelling. But I guess there is a little kind of like throwback in it. Well, I mean, Mission Impossible is what, when did that first film come out? Like 15 years ago. It's not a brand new franchise, but I mean, I love it though. I love that kind of stuff, and I know that it would just be, I will be entertained every single month coming up with a new thing and having them have to deal with it and like draw some cool stuff in between.
Yeah, no, it sounds. I love that type of story as well. Like and I love spy thrillers. I love kind of all that. A lot of that stuff that Ed Brubaker did with his Captain America run. Like
that's where it is. I would love to do something that side of the Marvel universe, and I haven't really gotten to do much of it. So this is kind of me basically doing it for myself,
Right.
you know.
And of course, one thing you did touch on with that is the kind of recent X-Men Unlimited Latitudes one shot that I think was digital first and then published.
Yeah, it was four chapters that came out weekly. And then I did a following one as well. So I like format, you know. I like that was the interesting thing about that. It wasn't necessarily digital comics because I don't really care about digital comics. But it was the format experiment I thought was interesting. And for me, whenever I'm writing something or I'm working on something, the format kind of like I did a Bog Bodies graphic novel, and I wrote that to be a graphic novel, not for issues, you know.
Which is a great.
Oh, thanks. I was fishing for a compliment and I got it. Thank you. But whereas Old Dog, like again, I want this to be like episodic, and the point of making it episodic means you really do need to feel like you're getting a full story issue to issue. And those chapters are pretty fun because again they were in 4 chapters but tell a larger story. It's a fun way to work.
Yeah, the latitude thing. We were just saying off air. I was telling you how much I enjoyed that. I thought it was so cool, and I didn't realize actually when I picked up the print copy that it was actually written sort of for digital. But as you were saying, it's you wrote it kind of to serve both print and digital.
Yeah, well, it was Hickman who it was Jordan White in the X Office and Hickman who asked if I wanted to do it, and I wasn't mad about the idea of doing a digital comic, but knowing Hickman was adamant that it would be in print too. So that was kind of my thing, as long as it was going to be in print in some form. And because it was going to be in print, I didn't want it to read like it was a, collaged together awkwardly for print. Because a lot of people are working digitally these days. They can just make it, they can literally draw it to the format, which is perfectly fine. But if it's for print, then it's going to kind of be jammed together in an awkward way. And that's not how I want my kind of stories to be read. So I actually did the layouts in the print format, accommodating for that they were going to be digital too. So that's why you'll see in the print copy that Liz has is that they're basically 2 columns every page, and the storytelling works within them. So that was kind of that was the format I kind of had to make, was that if I want these to be read satisfyingly digitally, but constructed for print, I had two different kind of mindsets at the same time. But I think if you included that story with like another X-Men story, it's not going to work because the format of the thing will completely change. But I do think maybe one day we could collect the one that's already out and the one that's coming out, because again, as long as the structure is the same, I think the reader will adapt and read it right through. But if you had that and then like a regular issue, and then it would get it would get messy. I don't think it'll quite work. But no, that was a cool experiment. I have no idea how it went down. I have no idea if anybody read it. Haven't a clue.
I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Paul and I talked about it on the comics podcast, and I was raving about it because I just loved it. I feel like that may be the sort of first like really vertical comic that I read, like where all the storytelling is done that way, and I just loved it.
It's weird. I was listening to like all the reviews at the time because I am that like not insecure, but sort of looking for, I don't know, desperate for attention. But it was hit and miss. Some people, it depends what you're into. Some people were reading the kind of webtoon stuff, and it didn't work for them, because I did a good bit of research on kind of what was coming out, and a lot of it I hated, and some of it I thought was really cool. But like, I don't know. I think if you just, it's either talking heads or it's action. Talking heads work really good with the format because it's just a screen. So like literally how we look right now is kind of, you can draw that in comics. Action can only go down. It can't go left or right, and it can't go up. It can only go down, which is a bit of a limitation. But it also forces you to kind of do some interesting things for a storytelling point of view. And I knew me and Hickman were talking like, if we're going to do this, then let's take advantage of the medium. But I know some people didn't like that at all. They didn't like that you were scrolling through like as Wolverine drops out of the station and things like that. But for me, that was like the reason to do it.
Yeah, it was so fun. I mean,
cool.
and it was, what I really liked about it too was that it was just this super fun, stripped back, like, Wolverine story, just Wolverine being Wolverine.
Yeah.
I know the whole thing is him just, like falling down elevator shafts, but it's great,
Yeah, like it's self-aware. Like when I was writing the second one, because basically Hickman kind of left the door open. He said, "What do you want to do for the next one?" I told him, and he'd left that door open for me, which is very nice of him. Thanks, John. But I remember just thinking, like, an X-Men story. What does it mean? A world, they're fighting for a world that hates and fears them. It's got to be deep. It's got to have more messages, or it could just be punching shit and just like, because it's like if it was different. If I was doing like a 5-issue mini X-Men series that I was writing and drawing, it would be different. There would be more to it. There would be something more thematically substantial. But for what this is, I feel like that would just work against what the format is. Like I wrote a story, the issue after the digital one, the next digital one I did, I wrote and Nick Roach drew. It was a St. Patrick's Day story. So I got to write about leprechauns for St. Patrick's Day. But that was very different because I didn't write it the way I was writing it for myself. I wrote it more tightly. And it was awkward because I didn't want to kind of handcuff Nick to draw the way that I was doing it, because also I was writing a kind of more of a family drama, and that's not necessarily fitting. That wouldn't fit what I was doing previously. So I guess I got to have my cake and eat it.
There you go.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
You deal with it, Nick.
Yeah. Let him do the heavy lifting.
So with the next one that's coming out, you're writing on that but not doing the art this time, or
no, the next one I wrote and drew myself.
Excellent.
So it's a sequel. It's called the first one's Latitude, the next one's Longitude.
So you're going the other way?
No, you'll just have to turn the tablet. No, it's more of a chase story.
Right.
The guy Wolverine's chasing after some trying to find the rest of the mutant left over from the previous.
No, I was just wondering if you'd ever consider like I remember the X-Men Grant Morrison annual that was landscape, and I wondered if you guys considered that, because you don't see many landscape single issues now.
True. I mean, but that's not what this format was. So that was just kind of out. Two, like, I mean, I generally like to play with left and right, kind of wide. Right. A lot of my kind of shots in comics are kind of like letterbox panels. That's kind of my standard, which is why I didn't want to do the digital thing in the first place, because it worked against everything I kind of do with like Moonknight and Injection and anything else since. But that was also actually, I remember thinking at the time, like, at this stage of my career, it's probably not a bad thing to just try something completely different, within the safe bosom of Marvel paycheck, as it nourishes me, as it feeds me. I don't know why I'm doing this, or a giant breath. But there was a safe place to experiment for a while and try something a bit different, which, it's easy to just kind of find one thing that works and goes with it. I mean, I'm going to do that anyway, but it was nice to maybe just take a break and just try something totally different, and you learn stuff from it too. So that was also, I colored it as well myself, so that I used it as an opportunity to kind of like become a one-man comics machine, except for lettering, because I'm not insane.
Which is what you're doing with Old Dog, correct? Yeah.
I am writing, drawing, and coloring it like a lunatic. And Clayton Coles is lettering it, because he's my guy, and there's no way I could letter it on my own. But I kind of wanted to. I think after having written and drawn and colored at Marvel for like a year, I did a Hulk one shot like a year or so ago that I really liked, and I wrote and drew some other stories and colored them too. And I figured, like, well, if I'm willing to take a paycheck for Marvel to do it, surely I should, like, put my money where my mouth is and do it on something that I own.
Yeah. I mean, that's it's amazing to sort of be the sole sort of person, like
yeah. And I've also kind of wanted, I mean, I'm just as much enough of a narcissist to really want to do it. Have it all be me, about me, and no one talk about anybody else. But I don't know, like, I could have, there's so many, I know, like, so many great colors I could have asked to do it, but they just weren't good enough, no. No, and it would have been smarter in some ways because it means that I'm just working on the next issue. Like, to keep in mind that like this book has a deadline and it's going to hit the publishing and all that. But I figured, I'm just going to do. I'm going to do 6 issues, and then I'm going to bring it out as a new series for the next 6 issues. So it's, if you look at the cover, I have like Redact 1 on it. So that what that means is it's basically a volume, for lack of a better term, a season. Of six issues, kind of like what we do with Moon Knight, and then I'm going to come back and do a new one, issue 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and a new volume 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, kind of like Hellboy.
Right.
I really like that model, and I don't think it necessarily. I don't think it works on other books, but if you're the one person doing everything, my hope is that like readers and retailers will believe enough in it to go like, well, we know what this is going to be good, and we can wait for the next volume. We can wait a few months for the next volume rather than me have to kind of go right into issue 7 and then burn out on issue 8. I don't want to burn out. I want to just do the book, do a good job, and then put it out when it's ready to come out for 6 months.
Is there a risk of burning? I mean, because you're also writing time before time, which is fantastic, and really enjoying that as a sort of new book, and I think it tackles time travel in an interesting way.
Thanks, man.
Is there a danger of burning out? Because also you've got, I know you're probably kind of thinking about the next OGN, right? I mean,
I am, yeah. You're in my mind. Yeah, no, I kind of like, my danger is I'll always come up with something else that I should be working on.
Right.
But there's plenty of other things. No, I mean, if I'm being honest, like Rory's pretty much running the show on Time Before Time now. Like I'm not. Well, I am involved. Like we've just finishing a 2-issue story that Rory wrote himself. Like I kind of looked at it and gave notes and stuff, but like I normally would. But I wasn't involved in the writing as much. That's issue 13 and 14. So we did a year on the book, and I kind of wanted Rory to. I feel like I get too much credit for that book, and I'm happy to take it. But I think it's easier if I'm not on the book for 2 issues and people can see what a good writer Rory is. I wanted that to happen, and then we're going to switch the credit order on the book where it's Rory's name first and mine second, because I mean we're both co-writing it, but like he's doing more of the hardcore work on that. Like I'm kind of overseeing it from a story point of view, and like kind of managing the book along with Heather Antos, the editor.
Was that
so beyond the initial story notes, Rory's doing a lot of the work, and then I'll kind of come in and give some notes on that. But it's like at this point it's like 80% Rory, so he's going to do more of the work on that now.
But was that always the plan?
Well, no, because we didn't know if we'd go past issue 4 or 5. Like initially, what it was is I think Rory's great. I think he's a fantastic writer. He was working on 2000 AD stories. And I don't mean this in any negative way, but like I just thought my worry is that he was just going to die in obscurity on 2000 AD. It's a great book, it's a great anthology, but like if you want to have a comic book career, like that's only so far you're going to get there. So I was hoping he could break into the American market, and I like sent his work to some editors and stuff. But I just felt he needed to have a book outside of that market, something in the like mainstream American market. So my idea was, hey, I want to write a new book, because I think I'd finished writing Bog Bodies at the time, and it was being drawn, maybe something like that, and I wanted to do something next, but I didn't have the mental energy. Just like in my life, I was wrecked, and I just wasn't in a place to just come up with something on my own. So I kind of said to Rory, like, look, would you want to write something with me? And if it got approved, then you and me are writing it together, and you get attention for writing, and hopefully you'll get some work from that. And it worked, because he's writing Spawn now, so that's nice.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Like, and I know Todd. I was talking to Todd one time, and he said he really liked the book, and he was crediting like very specific things about the writing. And I wanted to go like, it's me, Todd, it's me. But it was specifically things that Rory had been doing. So I was like, that was Rory. And then so Rory got that job.
Forgive my ignorance here. Rory is also an Irish comics writer.
I thought he was a terrorist or something. No, he's thanks for just judging us all the same way that Bob.
Jesus Christ.
I'm trying to drum up some controversy for your podcast. Yeah, no, Rory's from.
Please don't.
Yeah, Rory's from Cork. Yeah, he's an Irishman too.
Right.
Like, I first found his work when he was. Do you ever remember Zuda Comics?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so he had a Zuda comic, and he
Right.
was 16.
Jesus.
I remember thinking, like, what the hell is this little twerp doing a comic, a DC comic? Who's doing a DC comic? But he would always kind of send me some short stories he did for anthologies and things like that. And I just, well, one, I was impressed with like his, for a young kid to be kind of that a show initiative, you know. But yeah, I just kind of knew him over the years, and I remember I suggested him for like a graphic novel one time for an Irish publisher, and that seemed to go well for him. But yeah, so he's I keep forgetting how young he is too. I'm like, you and me, we're 40. He's like, no, I'm like, I think he's like 32 or something, or 30. He's a child. But yeah, he's been living in London for like maybe 10 years now, I think. So he has to come back in the next 5 years, otherwise he'll be branded a traitor.
I wonder if we would have seen him at Orbital.
I'm sure you would have. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure, like glasses, beard, shaved head.
That's everyone in comics.
The other comic book guys.
You've just described every man in comics. But what I was trying to get at there is, in the same way that you see Ramvi working with a lot of Indian writers and artists, and it's, you know, he feels it's important for him to do that, and that's something I kind of agree with. Is it important for you to push Irish writers and artists to the forefront now that you've gained a sort of status and you know you've had a fair amount of time in the industry? Is that something that's important?
I do feel we need more white guys. That's definitely, you know.
But I mean, there's got to be. There's, I thought, you know.
No. I'm messing with you. I know you're dead right. I mean, I think we're punching above our weight. Like, there's a lot of guys doing great stuff now in comics from Ireland, and I think it's brilliant. It's harder for writers, you know. I know I'm the art cred guy, but like, I fully acknowledge like it's very hard for writers to break in. I broke in as a writer, but that's after being an artist for like 10, 15 years. And at one stage, I'm thinking like, wow, I'm like the most successful Irish artist or Irish writer in comics right now, because I draw them, you know. But there's some really good talent out there, and I've always been, I'd like to think, like an advocate for newer creators, especially now where, like, you know, it's not like you can go to comic book conventions the same way you could before. You could just kind of go up and start talking to somebody. Those things so there's like 2 years where like new creators have not been able to do that. Now Rory isn't brand new; he'd been doing work for quite a while, but like that way, I knew I could trust him to deliver. That's something to kind of know, you know. But you know, even like Phil Barrett, who drew Savage Town, like he's older than I am, but an amazing cartoonist that just I felt wasn't getting enough acknowledgement. So that's why I did that book with him. And Gavin Fullerton, who drew Bog Bodies, he was like a student of mine at this kind of storytelling class I did in Dublin. Fantastic cartoonist. I loved his stuff, so I wanted to make something to spotlight him. I do have another book in mind that I'd like to do as an Irish artist. Like, so those books specifically, yeah, I try and I try highlight Irish artists, but for me, it was like I knew Rory he'd been in the field for years. He'd been in the trenches, in the indie trenches for 10 years. I felt like he deserved a shot. And look, and it was beneficial for me too, because I wanted to make a new book. I wanted to do like a new project. I just didn't have the capacity to do it all on my own. So it worked out really well, because I got to kind of bring Rory in, and he had his graphic novel Write It in Blood done too. So he got to bring out his own book as well. So I feel really good about that. I'm hassling him now because I feel like he needs to put out another book that has nothing to do with me, because I do get too much credit for Time Before Time. I'm not saying I don't write the book. I do, and we go over everything together. But he's a terrific writer, and I want to see him. I want to see him do really well, and then I can piggyback off his success.
And just before we move on to, I mean, I've absolutely loved Bog Bodies and Savage Town, and
nice.
I think that I don't know if it's just because you are from there, but you capture there's a musicality to Irish voices. I always found, growing up in my home, my father was Irish, and I think you capture that, incredibly well. Which I mean, I don't know if that's an easy thing for you.
It is and it isn't, like, because you kind of got to be careful. I remember doing Savage Town with all the different slang words, like, I had to come up with this kind of like spell check was not happy with those scripts, but you have to make sure that your ye's and your yas and your things were all consistent. I was making a new kind of a language there, so that was kind of difficult. It was more of a softer version in Bog Bodies because it was just outside Dublin, so it's not even here. Like, I'm back in my hometown, and the stuff people are saying to me that I love the phrases that we have here. It's like there's, because we have like lots of like immigration the last few years. So there's like Polish people and Brazilian people, and they're learning English here. So they're learning English, but they're learning phrases that make no actual sense in the English language, as if that's what they are, but they're not. We're just our Banjak's way of saying things, like, like, sure, you know yourself, and like, if you're learning English and that's what you're learning, it's like, it makes no sense. Like, put those words together, it doesn't make any sense. But I do really enjoy that kind of phraseology and that kind of mannerism, and it feels great to write. I really do like writing it. So I have like 3 ideas for more books. For me though, Savage Town was like a prod. By the way, I think that the kind of language you mean is swearing. It's all swearing.
I'd say it's actually not, but okay, yeah, go on.
But no, I mean, Savage Town for me was like, that was look. I've never seen a book like this. I've never seen anyone make a book like this, and I think I could do it. And I did, and that's great. And I'm so satisfied with that. Like, it didn't set the world on fire sales wise or anything, but I got to make something that, like, there was nothing else like it, which was made it hard to sell because you can't necessarily compare it to anything. But it's exactly the thing I wanted to make. And having done that, that kind of loosened up space for me wanting to do it more. But a sequel didn't make much sense sale wise, so come up with a new story. And like, since then I've had these other ones, but after the year I've just done a Marvel, I want to create our own book, and I just felt the best thing to do right now is to do like as mainstream a book as possible. I don't mean mainstream as in obvious, just like, this is, if you read Daredevil, you can read this book.
Right.
If you read Moon Knight, you can read this book, which is Old Dog. I have a graphic novel I want to write and draw set in the Paddy Wackery world, but I think, and it's purely like a businessy decision or whatever, but I think it would make more sense for me to do that after Old Dog rather than before, because if I can sell a book that I write and draw to a mainstream audience, that just means that the book I draw later will have a better chance of succeeding.
Yeah.
Rather than if I just did it now and put it out. I'm sure it would do well. I'm not saying it wouldn't do great, but like, graphic novel has one income stream. It's going to take longer to make money back. It just felt like maybe I'll earn that when I kind of do something, because I haven't written and drawn a creator own book yet. So I do want to do more of those books. Probably the next thing I do after Old Dog will be one of those, because it's going to get further away, and I don't want it to be something that people have forgotten about.
Yeah.
And also, sorry. Also, I find that you can kind of even in very books that we would call commercial, you can smuggle in some really fascinating ideas.
Sure.
And just speaking about about the kind of Irish set OGNs that you've written. I mean, they kind of entertain me and move me in the same way as movies. And I did write about this in the review for Bog Bodies. As things like, and I don't know if you've seen them, like Adam and Paul and I Went Down.
I haven't seen those.
You haven't, or you have?
No, I haven't actually.
You should definitely check them out.
But I know what you mean. Like, there's things like Intermission. The Snapper was a huge. The Snapper was what made me give me the idea for Savage Town. Was like, how have I not seen something like this? Now it's different because it's a crime drama. It's not about like a girl with an unwanted pregnancy. It's a very different story, but the kind of.
But you're getting to into like kind of cultural minutia, which I think is a fascinating way in, or genre can be a fascinating way into cultural minutia, I find.
Sure. And the thing was, what I could do with that book, I was talking to a friend of mine before who wanted to write a book set in like his home area, a specific country, and the publishers wouldn't let him do it. They were like, no, this doesn't make any sense. To be fair, it would have been a hard sell, but the point is he was told no. And I knew that wasn't going to be a problem with Image. Like, I could just do whatever the hell I could go all in. Now, I would say with Savage Town, I didn't go all in. I probably went 90% in. There was 10%. I remember the opening scene. I'd written this bit where somebody says, like, oh, did you hear about your man? His mother fucked him down the stairs. And here, that just means she threw him down the stairs. But I had an American editor to kind of catch this stuff. And he's like, yeah, that's going to be read very differently. So there was like a 10% where I pulled things back a little, you know. But I did, but not in a way that, like, you know, was going to work against the book in any way. And I think that, like, I don't know, the specifics are very specific, but the story is fairly universal, you know. You know, your friend betraying you, and like these. It's for what I wanted to do with that book and Bog Bodies too, was I wanted to make a book that somebody in America could pick up and go like, oh, this is an Irish book. The same way if you watched like In the Name of the Father or you know, My Left Foot, or like, you know, Irish films. Like I grew up at a time where Irish cinema really took off in the 90s. A lot of Irish directors and actors just saw success that had never really been there before. And I kind of wanted to do something like that in comics. I can't say I've succeeded, but yeah, what I wanted to do was like have a book. Like in America, you can read an authentic Irish book, and somebody in Ireland is going to pick. Like I want your dad to read that book. You know, I want you to read that book, and then like, well, not give it to your dad, buy another copy and give it to your dad. That like, because you know, here we read like Irish crime novels, Irish crime films, like TV shows. They do really well here. So I wanted to take a genre that was successful in Ireland, but give it to them in a medium they're not really used to. Yeah, that was my hope, was that like I could make something that would have more mass appeal. Admittedly, in a small country, it's not like sales in Ireland are going to like, you know, make a book go crazy. But if I could also make a book in America for Americans that like they can read it, and I think you fall into it. You fall into the language and the patter. You don't need a glossary explaining what the words are. You know, I had that with The Wire. I remember first starting to watch The Wire, and you're like, "What the hell are these people saying?"
I had to stick the subtitles on in the first season of The Wire because I just genuinely didn't get a lot of the slang. But
it wasn't just the street slang. It was the police terminology. You know, like Red Ball or Who Done It, and you're like, "What are they talking about?" But you acclimate to it, and especially you can do with a graphic novel. I think that's better. It's easier to do that like in a single issue. If you read a single issue of a comic, you might get the hang of it by the end, but then you've got to reset again when you read issue 2.
See, I loved I when I was like a teenager, I read Trainspotting for the first time, and that like, you know, I spent like the next, you know, like week or two thinking in Scottish slang. You know, like I loved it. You know, I thought that was the coolest as an American teenager. You know.
I just read,
especially you read a novel, which meant I think it sucks you in more. Same with I think a graphic novel, and I would like to do more of them, but at the same time, when I was talking to Rory about Time Before Time, I just didn't want to do another. I didn't want to be like the Marvel guy who did like, you know, I call them Paddy Wackery books. I didn't want to just be doing that from a creator standpoint, especially because I was doing like Injection, you know, and I love sci-fi. I love big ideas. I'm a big fan of that stuff. I just wanted to do something on the side. Now I'm in a weird place where like I've done one very big kind of sci-fi book with Rory, and Old Dog I would also describe as a sci-fi book. So I kind of want to take a step back, maybe. Actually, honestly, I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do next, because I have like these sci-fi ideas and these crime ideas, and I'm not sure what the next focus should be once Old Dog is up and running, and I know I'm going to want to like start something new to come out like the following year. So I'm in a weird place now. I'm trying to figure out what that is. Do I do another Paddy Wackery book, or do I lean into like another genre thing? I don't know. Tell me what to do, Liz.
We wait and see. You know,
I'll be excited for whatever it is. I mean, yeah, because I you know, I love all of it. You know, and I think it's really cool and unique amongst the Image books. You know, to come at it from that perspective. You know.
Yeah, I mean, like I can say that I definitely have a stranglehold on the Irish crime section of the Image Comics library. But credit to them, they publish it too. Like I can't. I didn't think. I figured they'd do Bog Bodies after Savage Town, but Savage Town initially, I'm like, well, actually, I pitched it as a series, and Eric suggested doing it as a graphic novel, and I think that was the right move. I think it was best overall to do it that way. But credit to them, like, you know, everyone just says they publish this type of book over and over, but like, you know, that was a weird move for them to do that book, and I'm very grateful they did.
Yeah. We're really grateful they did. So, I mean, moving on now. Sorry, guys, because we've got like 20 minutes left, and this is the Moon Knight show, so we do have to talk about Moon Knight.
All right, sorry, yeah. Moon Knight.
Sorry.
Yeah. Well, we have, and of course, we should mention your own Moon Knight work. You know, before we get started on the show, because it's been so influential to the show in so many ways. Particularly as Paul sort of mentioned, you know, when he was introducing the show. The super iconic Mr. Knight suit. That
was pretty cool.
Like that must have blown you away seeing that. You know,
I want to know, Dick. You went to the premiere, right, out in LA, okay? Mm-hmm. And how many episodes did they show you?
2. It was 2 episodes.
So and again, because my aging, crumbling data bank needs to be wiped almost immediately after I do these podcasts. You first see the Mr. Knight suit in episode 3?
2. Episode 2.
It is in episode 2. So, yeah. I mean, what was it like sitting there in that cinema and bang, Mr. Knight suit pops up? Like,
it was
what was it like?
Like, so I brought my sister along with me to it, and like there was like the red carpet where you go in and you're like where all the celebrities go, and you're like, oh wow, and like no, not that red carpet, this red carpet, and you're shoved off to this like tertiary red carpet. But no, it was cool. There was a common area where everybody met, but like the email I got from Disney said like be here at this time and the thing starts at that time, and me being like the good Irish boy, I'm like, well, you know, it says things are gonna start, so we better go. And my sister was like, what's wrong? Just fucking relax, like just hang around and meet Oscar Isaac. I'm like, I know now, like, you know, the email says it's there in black and white, I should really obey the email. So I didn't see any celebrities because they showed up. Because so I was sitting in the beautiful El Capitan Theater. I think it's where they have all the Disney premieres, and they had the Moon Knight logo like projected on the curtain, which is also a logo that I designed. Me and Jordy designed that logo for our run.
Fantastic.
So that was cool, and they had this like they had this guy's organist playing all these like old show tunes. He had like the sequin jacket, and then when he was done, he was lowered into the stage. Pretty cool. Wow. It was beautiful theater. And yeah, they showed the first episode and then they went right into the second episode. And there's that bit where Stephen falls out the window and then he just kind of lands in this profile shot. And I did jump in my seat. Like I just felt I didn't like jump up, but I could feel myself just kind of like jolt. Or you know, it was crazy, you know.
Yeah.
And even that shot, it felt like a shot I would draw. Like it had the same kind of composition as something I would like. Just I don't know. It was. I'm not trying to project more of myself onto it than is deserved, but that was really cool.
But I'm sure that must have been on the minds of the people making the show. You know, looking through the comics and
somebody on Twitter who worked in the visual development part told me that they were like looking at my issues, which is cool, you know, because that's the thing is I knew he was going to, well, he clearly did see the photographs that he was going to be in it, and some stuff was kind of leaking out to me beforehand, but like I mean, most part I'm just reacting like everybody else when this stuff comes out, like, you know, I didn't know there was going to be Mr. Knight because before everybody else, because I did an illustration for Marvel Studios as part of their style guide, and they gave me access to reference material. So the day Old Dog was announced and I was kind of like on a high seeing the reaction, I was also looking through the Moon Knight reference folder, and it's very slow to move because it puts a watermark on every image so they know if you like leak it. So I was waiting for the thing to load. I'm like, fucking come on. And then I saw Oscar Isaac in the suit, like in a thumbnail. I'm like, what the and then I clicked on it, and come on, fucking load. And then there he was, like actual Oscar Isaac in the suit. And then I scrolled more and I could see they had the version where he had sleeves rolled up, like in issue 5. And I'm like, you know, when that stuff happens, you want to take credit for it. Because like I should always mention as well that like Moon Knight was first in a suit in an issue of Secret Avengers that Warren wrote and Clark drew. The difference, in my opinion, is Mr. Knight was specifically made for our run, like that character, and that design is a refined take on like Warren's initial idea with Michael. Just to clarify that, because people always like to correct me on the shit I already know. But when I mentioned that, so like I didn't want to like, and I saw Khonshu's bird skull head, and like that was me and Warren did that in our run, but he was in a different costume, so like I just don't want to go like, oh, this is definitely from my run. I kind of was like, it's probably from something else. But when I saw Oscar Isaac in the rolled up sleeves with the jacket off, I'm like, okay, well I can't deny it anymore. That's definitely from our runs. That's when I felt like, okay, yeah, no, I can kind of claim a tiny little bit of ownership on it. But then to actually see, that's what I've said to some people, like to draw something and then see it look back at you, you know, is I've just never experienced that in my life. It was crazy. And yeah, he's there on screen and he whips out the things, and like I would say like that was really cool. And for the last few episodes I've been frustrated because you only kind of see a glimpse of him. But in this finale, I feel like there was finally that shot where he's lashing into guys, and that feels like a little snippet of issue 5.
Right. You know? Oh, which issue 5 of that run was absolutely mind blowing. That's one of my favorite issues.
Everyone's favorite. It's my favorite
ever,
too.
Yeah.
You know, but like that's where he's punching and hitting things, and like his jacket is moving in the way that I drew it. That was really cool. But I was getting frustrated because to be fair, like there's 40 years of Moon Knight comics that they're taking inspiration from. And a lot of people been complaining to me saying like, oh, Mr. Knight, he's that was what my sister said to me in the cinema. We were watching it, like she goes, is Mr. Knight that goofy in your comics? I'm like, no, he's actually a badass. But like by the end he is a badass, you know. I like that's the thing when you're watching a show and everyone's like, why isn't this exactly like the Thing? It's like, well, our Thing wasn't exactly like the Thing, you know. Like Mr. Knight was okay, he was a badass in issue 1, but like, you know, they're telling a different story. And as long as they got there in the end, I was happy with that, and I think that they did. So, especially the way they ended it.
Right.
I don't answer your question. I don't think I am. I can't remember. It was the premiere, I think.
Yeah. Well, and at the premiere, I remember seeing a photo at the premiere of the suit itself, like on a mannequin.
There's a photo of me in front of the two of them doing this. You know, like, because I just remember looking close up at the suit, and I was just like,
wild.
What's happening? Like, you know, it's crazy, and it looked amazing. Like, and I think that the suit looks fantastic. But yeah, no, it was so weird. Like, I'll never have an experience like that in my life again. It was crazy.
Yeah.
So my sister was expecting this to be a regular occurrence. Like, we're doing when are we doing this next? Anytime now, anytime. Yeah.
But surely there's always a possibility now that your work could be picked up for, you know, various TV or film projects. I mean, I think all the Irish crime stuff would
sorry, I thought you meant kind of Marvel stuff.
Both.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't really do that much
original time, surely. I mean,
my problem with Marvel, my problem when I was at Marvel, like for the first few years, was, you know, I was kind of on stuff that I was the second guy. Like I was following the main artist. I was number 2. Moon Knight was my first chance to be number 1. I should really come up with better terms than that. But that was my opportunity where I felt to like cut loose and do what I think I could do. And I thought I could do interesting stuff, and I feel like I did. But now I kind of try to do that on creator and stuff. Like, you know, I mean, if Marvel handed me a character the way they handed Warren in Moon Knight, like, you know, he completely revamped that character for a completely new audience, you know, and I was along for the ride, and I appreciate it. It was so like great to do. But like, unless you're doing that for Marvel, I don't really see they're not going to be adapting. Like, you know, it's weird. They're in a weird kind of cycle where they're making the things in comics just like the films in order to like for a mass audience to get them. But the stuff that's like hitting the mass audience is the new kind of interesting thing. So
Right.
they're in a weird place right now. But no, yeah, I would be more than happy if the image stuff. I mean, yeah, I'm definitely hoping that happens. That's the only way I'm going to get to another Hollywood premiere.
Yeah, but that Moon Knight run, just before we start talking about the show, I do want to say it's one of my absolute favorite Moon Knight runs, and I think a lot of people feel that way. I remember it coming out, when I was working in the shop, and it just kind of blew people away, and so I'm so excited to see a lot of that make it into the show.
No, it's cool. I mean, I don't think there's a lot of it, like Mr. Knight, obviously, but it clearly so much more of it is the Lemire Smallwood run.
Yeah, but you can still see for sure, especially
sure.
as we said, kind of at the end of this episode.
Yeah,
things
very
clearly taken straight out of you guys.
When I'd kind of gotten used to it and gone, that's it. That's my time in the sun is over.
Mm-hmm.
And then that popped in at the end. It was like, okay, yeah, that's pretty fucking cool. But I don't want to derail your episode.
No, it's fine. It's fine. We do just need to talk briefly about the episode, which I mean, I have enjoyed every episode of this show, and I think it's been by far, for me, the best of the Marvel shows, and in a form of entertainment where, no disrespect to Marvel and all the people who are contributing to those creations, where I think the destination has become more important than the journey.
Yeah.
I think this show has reset that a bit, and we've gone on this incredible tonal and visual and just fascinating trip, and it has been a trip. And for me, I think the ending was, I don't think I could have hoped for a better ending, really. And I felt the ending of this did manage to give you kind of the inner journey and the bigger outer one, and it managed to give. I mean, I've never seen something where Egyptian god kaijus are battling across the kind of Egyptian sky, and it's just like, yeah, great, thank you. And although I didn't say that, oh yeah, I want that specifically, it was great to get it, and I just think it was a staggering end. And of course, you have the journeys of not just of Mark and ergo Stephen, but now of May Callumway's Layla. And what a thrilling trip it's been. I just absolutely love this. Liz, how did you feel about the ending?
Yeah.
The last episode of the whole, sorry, not specifically the end.
Right, yeah. Well, I really had no idea how they were going to wrap it all up, because it was a short episode comparatively, to previous episodes. And we kind of went into the episode with a million balls in the air, in terms of plot and, things that needed to be wrapped up. And, I was just like, how are they going to do this satisfyingly in 45 minutes? But they did. I was, I was really impressed, that they managed to bring in even things that I wasn't expecting, like Layla becoming the avatar of Taweret. That that really surprised me.
I did see someone mention somewhere the Scarlet Scarab, which I don't know if that's a specific character, because I'm not too deep into a lot of the other runs, but apparently that's who she becomes. And obviously there were tones there and touches of things like Wonder Woman 1984 in the costume, and a lot of people have some people have sort of criticized for that, but I think they are entirely separate. But I think, I don't think the kind of metal winged costume is exclusive to one thing or another. I've seen it in a bunch of different places, but it looked great and she looked great. And there was one lovely thing I saw. I think it was I can't remember if it was a mother or a father talking about their child. They're Egyptian, and they were saying how their daughter had been wanting to straighten their hair for such a long time, and then they see you know, May Callum Way as a superhero with her hair that way. And it's just little things like that that I think were great. And they touch on in the show, you know, are you an Egyptian superhero? And it was just like, great. Fantastic.
Well, I think that stuff can get. I think Marvel have done some pandery stuff in the past that kind of.
Okay, yeah, I think that's fair. But
I felt that was a natural character arc for her, you know, rather than like just being the love interest or whatever. And there was clearly a strong story. It was an earned
moment, I felt.
Yeah, no, it felt earned. Actually, that's what I liked about it. I was a little confused. I'm like, is they just make a new character for a show? Because that kind of feels weird that like Marvel Incorporated would do that. But I can see what they did. They took like an old, I think it's a Captain America villain or something, and like that'll fit. So it works. But no, clearly I think it was a big part of probably why the director wanted to do that. Like I think him and his wife was the music supervisor maybe, but like but I can see that, and like I don't know, the sometimes the representation thing can get in the way of the story. But like I said, I think this worked really nicely. It was kind of a moment of like, yeah, that was earned rather than why, you know. So I did like that. I think she looked fantastic too. Really liked the costume. And yeah, it just made sense in the story, you know, because otherwise she'd be killed off because there's too many monsters and guns and bullets and things, like, you know, like that she wouldn't realistically survive. Any human wouldn't survive. So it kind of and it also was a good, you know, I don't know, it just felt like the character stuff got to the point where it needed to, like between Stephen and Mark, and I think maybe they dropped the ball slightly on like the last conversation I had with Mark was about how he killed her dad. Like, I don't know, do you think they resolved that? But I think you could have done with one more episode. Just because it did get a bit jammed. I think issue 5 was a bit off the walls a little, and maybe could have. I don't know. The thing with the Netflix shows is they were too long, and maybe these shows are like slightly too short. Like,
maybe they need like 8 episodes, you know, just as the standard. Like, because I feel like you're right. You know, I mean the 6 episodes. You know, it feels like they kind of rush to the finish line sometimes, whereas they seem to kind of take their time with episodes 1 and 2. Whereas this one, you know, it was, I really enjoyed the episode, but it was just jam-packed and all action.
I would say, so I watch it with my mum and she loves it.
I watch it with my mum too.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Well, we have a kind of a weird, she watches The Chase all the time, but now we have a new game show of like who can spot my name before it disappears at the end of the credits. She loved it. She was when it ended, she was like, what? Like, say, before the end sequence.
Post credits, yeah.
And you know, I didn't know what to say to her because I didn't know either. I felt like it ended just a little too sharply, like before you kind of knew what was going on there, you know. I don't know what, that felt a little disjointed, and my feeling was like, oh, I don't know, that kind of ended a bit weird. But then after the end sequence, like, oh,
yeah,
right, okay, cool.
That sorted everything out.
That sequence wasn't there. I might have felt the end was a bit like just ended out of nowhere. Like, you know, how's he back in? He's back in London. Like,
yeah.
Now it makes more sense, and kind of, I don't know, sets up possibly more. I mean, I don't see why they wouldn't.
Let's hope.
So I don't forget to say it. What I did like about this was there was no like, where's fucking Wanda, or, you know, oh look, Peter Parker's there, or, which, don't get me wrong, that stuff is fun and I like it, but not everything needs to be that. And I know some people were complaining about this with Moon Knight, but I just personally liked that. If you don't know, like, I've moved back to my home county, and some people, they know what Marvel is, but they haven't watched all the shows, and they're like, oh, what do I need to know to watch it? I'm like, nothing. You don't need to know anything.
And that's been one of the refreshing things about it, and I think something, as you say, that's worked completely in its favour. And also, I just don't think there was room for any of that. There just wasn't time. There is so much to pack into this every episode that I think including that stuff would feel one note and cursory. And that's not to say that Moon Knight or Layla can't appear in other shows, or, you know, another Avengers movie, or this or that, or, you know,
as long as she's not lined up in a shot with every other woman in the
But I think sometimes that stuff is important to people, and I think everyone deserves their day.
They do. I think an audience just groans to that stuff. Like I said, I liked my. I liked her, and I like where I went. I'm not complaining that like she's made out a superhero out of nowhere. Who cares about that? She's not a huge character. I don't care about any of that. If it makes sense in the story, on board, like
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I wouldn't say, I don't think they're going to start doing lots of Scarab comics. Maybe they will. I don't know.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Who knows? But yeah, I don't know. It was hard for me to gauge because like I saw those 2 episodes before anybody else did, and you were asking me what I thought. My honest answer was I don't know, because I was just so in shock from the experience of it all. I had to turn to my sister at the first episode. I'm like, was that good? I just couldn't tell. I was just like, the fact that it was just happening, my jaw was just like the whole time. So
and the first 2 are as as a Moon Knight fan, like it was kind of hard to tell how I felt about it at first because it's so drastically different to everything that comes before. But as you pointed out, and as we've discussed on the podcast, that is the nature of Moon Knight comics. Like it's constantly being reinvented and reinterpreted.
And it should be weird. Yeah. It should be a weird show, and it was.
Also, reading a bunch of Moon Knight stuff in the last few months, it's had more good runs than most comics. Like, I feel that in a way those were kind of maybe a bit ignored as they went across.
My feeling has always been that Daredevil is probably has the best bibliography, as it were, as regards possible for adaptation. The amount of brilliant standalone stories, or even the ongoing book told, like you can take the Brubaker run or the Brubaker and Lark run, or the Bendis and Malieve run, the ripe for adaptation, or Frank Miller's work, or whatever else. Like more than any other character, like the X-Men, they're a mess. When you talk of storylines, like and Avengers, like what are the classic stories? I know there are some, but just not as many. And I remember when I was offered Moon Knight, Steve Wacker offered it to me. My feeling was, okay, I want to do Daredevil, but it's probably never going to happen. So I'm going to make this my Daredevil. I'm going to make this the book. Like I'm going to own the hell out of. I'm going to make this the street level. And I looked at, and then what was intimidating was I looked at who else was on the book. Sienkiewicz, like Alex Malieve, Tommy Lee Edwards, like all these amazing guys. And it was like the amount of amazing artists who've been on this book is insane. And you're right, it probably has been underappreciated for like the amount of like great runs that it's had that haven't sunk into the main comics consciousness. Maybe possibly because Sienkiewicz's run was just so just outshone everything. Arguably, you could say that like sometimes that happens with a character. There's such a huge run by a team, it'll just overshadow everything else that something's been done. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, but at this point, working in the shop, and seeing so many of these runs actually come back into print. It is actually really nice to see them getting some attention. Like, for example, that Bendis Malieve run, I loved that. And it's been out of print, I don't know, probably 10 years, something, at least. So one thing that's nice about the TV series happening is that it actually, gets people to go and read those things that might have been more cult favorite stories before.
They've been more willing to put more stuff into print for this show than any other I've found. And they certainly haven't done it for like Scarlet Witch, because every week, in the shop I work in, people come in and go, okay, got some Scarlet Witch comics, and it's just like, nope. we've got the Scarlet Witch and the Vision graphic novel from back in the sort of early mid 80s, and there's House of M where she's in two issues.
Wasn't there that James Robinson do?
They did just bring back that run.
That's now, at least in the UK, you can't get it.
We just got that back, so you should be able to get it.
Hopefully, I'll see it. Next week. But certainly it's been disappointing the turnout. But I've been pleased to see more stuff coming back into print.
I mean, that's always been the problem with the Marvel stuff, is that doesn't stay on shelves, like, or it goes out of print and then
they bring it back.
I think that's it.
Marvel's been out of print for a while now, like maybe a couple of years or something.
Yeah.
Which is
Which is insane.
ridiculous when you think how kind of significant it is to the show and to the Moon Knight mythos.
If all these new volumes of Moon Knight are selling like crazy, I'd say maybe it's perfectly likely it would. Like, but I mean, yeah, it's great that they're making this stuff available because they have a lot of great stories that nobody knows about, and now and I think as well, audiences that aren't like clued into comics as much, they want to know like what's this new thing like. And Moon Knight to them is new. It's not Captain America. It's not Iron Man. It's like, and people, I have a feeling people want to get in on the know on the new thing, so they want to read. They want to read all the stories, so they know what's going to be in the next film or something like that. You know, even though realistically, probably really won't be, or it's going to be some weird other version. But by all means,
but they'll go in feeling like they know the character, and that's and that's cool. That's cool that people want to do that. I love it. You know,
but personally speaking, I don't necessarily want to see Moon Knight in movies. I do want to see more of it on TV though, because I feel that it lends itself better to an episodic structure than to the structure of a
or
film.
like but there's rumors and stuff like a Midnight Suns film or something. Or I don't think Oscar Isaac is going to be going in on those movies. Like, it seems from the interviews and things I've read, is he basically got to be part of the creative engine of this show, and he's not going to be giving over all of his life to Moon Knight. I'd say it's something he'll pop in and do that's satisfying to him, and he's not gonna not gonna be in all the films or anything like that. I don't get that sense anyway, but I could be wrong. I don't know.
And we can probably assume that after this episode, Ethan Hawke's not going to be back.
Probably, yeah. But also, I don't think Ethan Hawke wanted. Like, the story I heard is that neither of them ever wanted to do a Marvel film, but Oscar Isaac got so into this character, and he convinced Ethan Hawke to do it, basically. So Ethan Hawke said, like, I'm sure his kids love that he's in a Marvel film, and he just, or a show, just did the show, and now he'll go off and do his indie movie. The money he's made from that, he can probably do all the indie movies he wants to do after that, which I think is a perfect strategy.
Yeah. And he has, respectfully to the work that everyone else has done on the show, like, for me, he's been the best thing.
Yeah, and it seems like he got mad into it too. Like, I keep hearing stories about like, apparently that whole thing with him putting the glass in his shoes was like just like an actor thing that he had in his head, and he mentioned it to somebody, and they're like, "Oh, we got to put that in the show." So like, it seems like
and I think Liz was saying back in the first episode, even the choice of song that plays over
the Bob Dylan song,
it was Ethan Hawke's kind of idea. And of course, we do have to briefly mention we do finally get to see Jake Lockley for this episode, which was kind of, I mean,
it's been hinted at the whole time.
And it was great.
I was waiting. I thought it was going to happen during the last episode where you see the scene where he's outside his mum's house. They keep having a taxi cab in the background. I kept seeing it. I'm like,
and then no.
I was like, I was frustrated. I'm like, they got to, right? I didn't expect they were going to use it for the limo.
No, but that worked. That was really clever.
And the thing I liked about that was you see the costume change in Khonshu, which I believe is from your work, right?
That was in the first issue 1 of Moon Knight, where we first see Mr. Knight. He goes back to his house, and Khonshu is there, covered in cobwebs, in the same suit. So when Khonshu appeared in the first episode, I was like, oh, because I think in Avengers he has that kind of more mummy-esque outfit. So I'm like, again, I wanted to take credit for the bird skull, but then I was like, oh, but that's not how he looks in my run. So then to have actually ended on that it felt like I was, I don't know, a long marathon, and I got to like hit it at the end. It was pretty.
He's in like the
he
stretch,
looked fucking cool too.
He looked so cool. He's in the white stretch limo, like
as well, like he's huge, in the rest of the show. He's got the big robes, but when he's in that white suit, his head's extra big, and I love that. I love how stupidly big his head is. It's so cool.
From that, what you're actually getting is Khonshu's strength is returning, and Jake is the vessel for all that, and that's kind of,
and that Khonshu just played a trick on
Mark all of them
and all the time, which is great, because it's great. Khonshu's not a hero; he's a duplicitous.
Can't be trusted.
I did see today somebody just sent me on Twitter. It was a quote by the costume designer asking if there was any version of Moon Knight that she wished she could have, like, other costumes she could have adapted, and she mentions the black one, which would be the superhero one that I did,
which I love.
Run. So
that's such a
that would be
one.
pretty cool if there was if the Jake Lockley costume because we don't know what happened. I do.
Yeah.
Nope.
Part of me's kind of thinks they could have done an episode showing the Jake Lockley stuff.
Yeah,
That would have been interesting. But
and it'd be
I do
interesting.
kind of
if they
like the
do-
hard out at the end where,
Yeah,
like that was one thing. The big climax where like you said, the Gaiju monsters, and like this is the moment where Mark's going to save the day, and then we cut to it being done. That's kind
Clever,
of ballsy. Yeah, it's ballsy, you know, because normally you need to have that big action moment. I mean, we did get enough action moments for it to be like a Marvel film, but
And
it was subversive enough to be an unusual
Different.
decision.
Yeah.
on a storytelling level, it takes you all the way back to episode 1, where Stephen is having the blackouts, and you don't see the action; you just see the aftermath. The action.
Well, that's if you assume that's Mark.
Yeah,
Right.
but we don't.
It probably
know.
wasn't.
Yeah. But you know, this is, as I said, it's been a great journey for me personally. We are going to have to wrap it up, unfortunately, because we've gone further over than we like to go for this.
Well, I mean, it's the quality. I think it's the quality of guests. Frankly, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
It is.
exactly.
You got to squeeze out a bit more Shalvey juice. I wish I'd phrased that differently. Or the next thing that comes into my head.
You wish you'd phrased it differently. This show doesn't get edited, my friend.
You know what? I stand by it. Hashtag Shalvey juice.
Trending.
Yeah, you know how this is getting advertised tonight, right? Declan, it's been such a pleasure having you on.
My pleasure. I didn't realize you were in Gosh now.
Yeah. So I'm over there.
Great.
1 or 2 days a week. So hopefully, if you're ever back in the UK, you can...
I'm hankering a trip to London. It's been quite a while.
It would be lovely to see you, and I'm sure the guys at Gosh will be thrilled to see you again as well.
I don't know about that. You again is probably more likely, but whatever. Yeah.
But it's fantastic to see your stuff coming to life in this medium.
And I will admit, like, not a bad time to have a new book out. I mean, I don't know if anybody cares who likes Moon Knight, but it was timing wise, it was just nice and handy to announce the book. I think I didn't even know the suit was going to be a thing, so I'm like, I have no idea if it'll help, but it's not. I don't think it can hurt to have so much promotion attached to my work, right? As I'm trying to promote a new book.
I mean, we're certainly going to talk about Old Dog on the Comic Crush.
I'll come back on and wreck your heads then if you want.
Oh, brilliant! Excellent.
Love to. Yeah. You can pick up Declan's other books, Savage Town and Bog Bodies. I'm going to try and drop a link to those at Gosh into the description show, so do grab them there.
I should say, Time Before Time next week is issue 12. It's a special standalone issue drawn by PJ Holden, and then the third arc starts the next month. So we're going strong.
And of course, that will be available at Gosh Comics as well as soon as that's out. I'll also drop links for the first couple of volumes of Time Before Time. So you can take a look at all that stuff. And
what are you going to do, Liz?
Sorry,
nothing. What are you going to do? Look at all the work Paul's doing. How are you helping?
Me? Oh well, I'll just be recommending all of your books at the very fine comic shop I work at in Worcester, Massachusetts.
Oh, what is it?
It's called That's Entertainment. It's a big, awesome comic shop.
That's great. I'm glad you've landed on your feet.
I have, yeah. If you're ever in this part of the world, we'd love to have you.
I'll hold you to it. I'll show up one day.
Good.
He's booking his flight now. Right. So look, it's been great talking to you, Declan.
You too, guys. Great to talk to you again.
Yeah, it's lovely to see you, and I really do wish you all the best with Old Dog. Liz, thank you so much for coming on again. This has been a real kind of pleasure for me these last 6 weeks, even with Liz.
Even with Liz.
It's been fantastic. Obviously, we'll probably be back for Miss Marvel, I hope. We don't know. And sorry, the comic show is going to come back in some form. We've had a few bumps over the last few weeks, and so the regular comic show has kind of had to take a back seat. In a couple of weeks, I'll be able to go into the reasons for that and stuff, but not right now. But
life happens.
Thank you. Life does indeed happen in unusual
talking to a
ways.
guy who's sitting in his mother's spare room right now. Yeah, life only happens.
It's probably almost time for your tea, Dick.
Actually, I think she's making dinner. It's great, actually. I may never leave.
I remember going over to Ireland and having my aunt continuously false food down my throat, and
Yes,
you know,
yeah, every time I see
like,
every time I see my grandmother, it's just tea and scones. It's great.
yeah, that was it. That was it. I've never heard the phrase "will you have a scone" thrown at me more times in a row.
You will, though. You will. You'll have one. It's not really a question. It's more of a statement. You know,
if anyone's
have a cup of tea,
you know, Mrs. Doyle on Father Ted,
yeah,
that isn't fiction.
No.
But yeah, it's been great to talk to you. I wish you all the best out there in you know, and I hope everything's going well for you. And I hope to see you in London or at a con or just somewhere soon.
It'll happen. It'll happen.
Yeah.
It'll be good to see you. So thanks, guys. You can catch us on the Comic Crush every week. There's loads of stuff happening on the website right now. Go and take a look. Loads of stuff happening on the web store. Please do take a look at the Patreon, and remember to subscribe to the channel for more of these interviews and shows and comic reviews. There's loads of good stuff coming in the next few weeks, so do stay tuned. We'll catch you next time on the Crush. Goodbye.